Thank you, Shane, for that. Shame. Hi. Thank you, Shane, for that warm Saskatchewan welcome, which is an oxymoron. If you're traveling to the Arctic Circle, stop by Saskatoon and ask about Shane. He's a legend. Today is a monumental day on the good, the bad, and the orange. We have a globally renowned real estate expert who actually lives here in the Valley, Tina Tamboer, with us today. I can't believe that she didn't just tell me to go away when I said, could you please be on our podcast? And she said, okay, just send me a thing. Because she's probably one of the busiest women in real estate who doesn't sell real estate because you're in such high demand, because you're funny. And I think statistical people that are funny is rare, and your insight really is a great guidance for us. And then we also have our one and only April Mauch, selling at Mauch speed.
Awesome.
Who's just a top producer and a mentor and a leader in our group. So, we could cover, as Tina said, her internal clock is for an hour and 35 minutes. And so I need to keep this to just the 35 minutes. So I think some of the things we wanted to ask was, you were born on a cold day in somewhere, right?
I was actually born in Paterson, New Jersey, before it was a slum.
Jersey. Before it was a slum?
As my grandfather would say.
I have a client who owns multiple mega rentals, Alan, who probably owns those slums now. He's probably one of those guys. Anyhow.
But I grew up in Virginia, actually, most of my life.
Okay,
Richmond.
and you went to college to study?
Finance, Virginia Tech.
Okay, and then you moved to Arizona?
1993. I've been an analyst, analyst and also salesperson for almost 30 years.
And so what got you to join up with Michael Orr? I mean, how did that happen? I mean, he's this stoic British, I guess.
Yeah. He's my mentor. I have a lot I owe him. He's amazing. But I'll say that my road to Mike was kind of interesting because I started out in 1993 as an analyst for a large title company in town. And so I did their internal data work for most of the 90s. Then I got into title insurance sales for 10 years. That's where I got a personality. If you're wondering where.
I would say title insurance sales, actually. Yeah. We know our rep is constantly on some sort of, I think, helium. Happy gas, and you got,
Yeah, that's
if you want to know.
Interesting transition. So
yeah,
where did you go from analyst to sales?
Well, I looked at my life as an analyst and realized, well, if I'm going to make any money at this, I can't put more hours in the day, and I had to figure out how I could, increase my income. And at the time, I was like, oh, these salespeople, this looks pretty good. I cried every day for 3 months. I'm just right now. I mean, pulling the personality out of a very, very shy individual, it took a lot. But the real estate industry was successful, so I am a product of you. And then, so the reason, back to my trip to Michael Orr, a couple of things happened. First, in the 90s, I met another analyst by the name of Tom Ruff, and he works with the information market. He's phenomenal. He writes for the MLS, if you've ever seen your stat. He is one of my other mentors. I've known him since the 90s, and then we all went through that crash together, right? The 2008 and 9.
That was such a wonderful experience.
Yeah, and especially as an analyst, knowing that we didn't have any data, we had nothing to tell us what was going on. We were all kind of blindsided. And I kind of felt after that experience, I never wanted to be blindsided by the market ever again, and that people needed to have enough information to make decisions for themselves. And so what happened was Tom Ruff invited me to coffee to catch up one day, and in walks Michael Orr. And of course at the time Michael was the famous person. He walked in. It was like, oh my gosh, he was the person out there telling people where the market was, where the bottom was. He was doing the speaking and all of that. And I didn't know it at the time that this was an interview. He sat down. Tom Ruff said, Mike, this is Tina. She's one of us. And that was the beginning of my journey with Mike.
You were one of them and didn't even know
I
it.
didn't even know it. I was like, and Mike's like, that's good enough for me. Here, can you do all of this stuff?
Well,
So.
I think what's interesting when you make that comparison, so many people got blindsided by 2008. We look back and we go, oh, how obvious. And now, of course, the correlation is we're in another 2008. And we read Cromford literally daily. It's kind of like our bedtime story and our morning and our morning mantras. Read that, but and everything says you say it isn't this because X, Y, and Z. And we go that, but people keep thinking that because of that fear of getting caught. How do we overcome that?
Well,
maybe we don't.
it's a market all on its own, and I think that's why as human beings we're always trying to find something that it's similar to so that we can try to predict the future and prepare ourselves or flee for our lives if we have to, whatever. But
Sell!
I know, right? Sell. But the thing is that when it comes down to it, human behavior, there's always going to be a level of uncertainty about human behavior and events and so on. So that's why whenever we go into times of uncertainty, we just lean into the numbers as much as we can, into what we do know, so that we can make our own decisions and our clients. And there's always going to be a level of risk, but you will have your own level of how much you can bear. And
Very
so
true.
That's what we do. We let people know, where is your level of risk, where do you lie, and where does the market look like now compared to back then, before everything went down in 2008-9. And what we're finding is that the math does not support somebody who believes we're going to have another 2008 crash. And by the way, when you tell somebody like you or me crash, I think you think we're going to drop 55%, and I will fight you.
Right. Yes.
I'll be like, we're going to go down. But many people have a different idea of what crash is. So now I've started to ask people, well, what does that mean for you?
That's actually a great question that agents should ask. What does crash mean to you? Because it's all perspective, right? And you're right. So we look at it and I go, I remember 2008. I go, okay, I'm either going to have to go work at McDonald's, or I'm going to learn how to do short sales very quickly.
Right.
And so that's what we did. We adapted because we were a little bit reactionary. But if we ask them what the definition of crash is for them, then we can, it may be for some people they don't do anything. That is okay. I mean, that's one thing I think the misconception about real estate agents is, no, it's always okay to buy or sell. Get over your fear and do it. That isn't true. But if we understand that definition of whatever it is, especially crash, now we can show them the information that either helps them at least set their mind at ease.
Well, that's what, for me, what I like to use the Cromford Report for. So, love it. And I use it for buyers, sellers, or even just education purposes. But for me, the way that the market has shifted, I use it as a way of planning. What's my solutions? So, coming in, a lot of real estate is about seeing what the problems could be and having the solutions prepared for if that were to happen. And being able to go from, it might be a problem for one client, but not another. So using what you provide us to be able to educate and say, here's what I know I can do to help make this seamless as possible.
Right, exactly. Well, and in every market you're going to have a seller who has to sell. Sometimes people don't have a choice as to what time they have to sell or when they have to buy sometimes. So basically what it does is it mitigates the fear. I think just having the knowledge and the ability to strategize. And what I love about the industry, the real estate industry in general, is we're all a bunch of squirrels out there, and we're all trying to solve the same problem. And when somebody solves it, we all leap on it. It is one of the fastest responding industries to market shifts, and that's why I think sometimes corporations try to get involved and they just get squashed because they don't move fast enough.
I find it wildly hilarious, actually, watching the tech companies try to change the whole industry. Talk about squirrel, though, just to be squirrel.
Yeah.
We talk about April sometimes. She'll go, squirrel. And she's like, that is, it's agents. It's like, what are we doing?
That's right. We're solving problems.
Yes. And, the iBuyer, I kid that, you'd think Zillow would have been a lesson for the current players. Let's not lose $1 billion. And now, what are they doing? They're losing, and we actually, from some of your information, I love the piece that you provide us about the insight on what's happening with iBuyers, because it's part of the market. They're the ones that artificially drove prices up in some markets, and now they're suppressing them because of their let's dump it. But you want to talk about opportunity. We've been sending out their lists to clients going, you want to buy? Got some cash?
Well, I think if anything has come out of the Zillow and the, by the way, in Phoenix there are 3 main players. It used to be Zillow, they're done now. They backed out last year. Open Door and OfferPad. OfferPad they're more conservative of the iBuyers. Open Door and Zillow had a bit of a clash of the titans last year, competing to see who could lose the most money, apparently. But what I think that it brought to light, at least for many of us in the industry, is, I love myself a good algorithm, but you do not want to use your algorithm as your price, because algorithms don't smell your house.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Is
right?
that not something we've talked about?
We just talked about that yesterday.
What does it
In our
smell
listing
like, though?
presentation.
Yeah, you never know. You're like, this is beautiful. How many cats have you seen?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Because it's true. Algorithms don't necessarily take into account a noisy neighbor or a busy street or, what the street itself looks like. All of these things that contribute to your home, your finishes, all of those things matter, and especially in this market they matter, and so you can't just go off of an algorithm. So I'll tell you where Zillow made their mistake was using their algorithm, their Zestimate, as their offer, and it took them 6 months to lose a lot of money and back out of the whole thing altogether.
We talked about that, though, when they started to buy. We said, how are they going to do this? They've given these values that we would sometimes dispute because they were kind of crazy. And now they're going to buy houses. How are they going to tell people we're going to buy that house for 20% less because they did a beautiful job of training people to follow their Zestimate. That's my value. You should give me that. Okay, well, now we're going to die on our swords. It's actually what they did.
They did. They believed in their Zestimate,
Yeah.
which I honor them for that. Unfortunately, it was poorly placed.
It was.
But we all know, those of us who, even like I said, I'm an analyst. I love algorithms. But I also know reality in that every home is different. Every home has its own personality, its own seller. And so to say that you're going to disrupt an industry and try to standardize something, I don't believe, A, I'm not so sure that you want to do that.
Probably not.
And B, as it's turned out, it's not necessarily a successful thing. Now, where Open Door came into play is that both of these players are playing in the most riskiest part of housing. Most of us don't play in short-term holds.
Right.
And short-term holds, just like in stock market, doesn't matter where you are, short-term hold is always the riskiest hold. So
You got to know when.
that's right. Yeah, and so what happened is that, we stated that when a market goes from a high-end seller market to a balanced market, flips or short-term holds are generally where people get caught.
Yeah.
So the general population is not seeing the same kind of panic or disappointment in their sale price as somebody who just bought maybe this year and has to sell this home that they've renovated.
Yeah.
They
Well,
paid a lot of money for those short-term flips too.
yeah,
That's
they
right.
did. There was people paying crazy money. It was, and it was. I think it was musical chairs the way this market shifted. The music stopped at the end of May, and everyone standing without a chair was like, "Oh crap!" And I think that's the piece that shocked most people. It wasn't going to a normal market, which I'm very happy about. It was how fast it happened. It was, and I remember, I will never ever ignore a Michael Orr red flag alert. I remember when he said one, it was in April, wasn't it? Early April?
February to March, we started to see the indexes started to show crack.
But there was a
The April
actual quote. He said,
Yeah.
"This is a red flag alert," and I thought, "Huh."
Mhm.
And I couldn't process fast enough, and
Right.
now, if he ever says that again, or you now change it to an orange flag, which would be okay.
Yeah.
I'm going, okay, we really gotta pay attention
I
to
would
that.
say we put out caution flags literally last year.
Yeah.
So last year, there was one index that told us that, in our game of musical chairs, the music's gonna start now. And that was June of last year when the affordability indexes started to dip below normal. And that's when, as an investor, if you're gonna continue to drive prices up beyond what the population can afford, somebody's eventually going to lose out on that, because you have to have somebody who can afford to buy it back from you, and you have to have somebody who can afford to rent it back from you. So if you continue to push prices up and rents up beyond the population, you are going to find yourself with an empty piece of property, and
Yeah.
that is where prices tend to fall. Both of those, if we're going to do any kind of correlation to the bubble and crash of 05 through 08 and 9, to this particular time frame of 2020 through 2022, the one player I can say that's consistent is Wall Street. And here's bear with me for my analogy, if you want to get a good story of how this all happened. Both times we were having a pretty good party all by ourselves. It was pretty hopping, it was great, it was a seller's market, and then your crazy friend comes with the tequila and the loud music, okay? Then they get the attention, people
It's
start
always the
complaining.
tequila.
It's always the tequila, which brings the loud music, right? And everybody starts having this rip-roaring party, and then the police are called.
Yeah.
And then they shut the whole party down, and that's essentially what's happened twice now.
That is the best analogy ever. That's the layman's version of that
Pretty
story.
much,
Yeah.
yes. And Wall Street in both cases. Wall Street in 2005 and 6, they were investing in mortgages, which increased our demand, and we all had a big old party on that until the foreclosure crash. And then, of course, the police came down and Dodd-Frank came into our lives, lots of regulation. And so this time around, Wall Street got excited and they started investing in the homes themselves, either as landlords or flips, and started getting drunk on residential housing again. And here we are now, the feds are coming through and they are putting the kibosh on our party. And the issue is Wall Street tends to screw up our residential real estate market, and then the government screws it up even more. So we have to get through this. And next time, if Wall Street ever comes back into our lives, be like, can you just keep the party low, try to stay under the radar.
Let's make it an AA meeting.
Yeah,
instead of
right?
tequila meeting.
No, exactly. Can we just do coffee, maybe?
Yeah.
But that's kind of how I see it.
Well, I'm going to use that. I love that. I will even quote you on that. I think one of the other things that that you had mentioned that I think is, we all know it's happening. As we drive about the 303 west of I-17, we start to see cranes and construction, and this one building keeps going and going and going and going. And we know it's the chip manufacturer. That's what we all refer to it as. And I think a lot of people don't know much more than that. They talk about the economic impact of that. And one of the things that I think is so crucial about this piece, and it's not just this one, there's others too, but when we talk about our housing market, falling or crashing or destabilizing, the flip side of that is we have this massive amount of industrial and technological growth, right? And so talk a little bit about that. There, you said that there was a Greater Phoenix Economic Council done a presentation at the Asian Real Estate Association of America, and so kind of give some insight into the impact that's really going to have. So from just from people moving here or businesses moving here or that kind of approach.
I don't think we can really underestimate the impact that the Taiwan semiconductor plant is going to be having on our economy in general, because they are the #1 biggest semiconductor company in the world, and they're coming here. So if you can imagine the waves that Intel made in terms of Chandler, Ahwatukee, Gilbert Real Estate. Now we're on the north side of town. All of our cranes are there.
Yeah.
And I think just about. And I think even Intel's growing as well. And but that means that this even a bigger operation than Intel is going to be transforming that northern Peoria, Wickenburg, even Anthem, Cave Creek, all that northern Phoenix area. is going to be, over the next 5 to 10 years, very heavily impacted in terms of new development, housing demand. So I guess the messages that I'm getting from Greater Phoenix Economic Council is that our metropolitan area is not done growing. So whatever we're going through right now in real estate is a temporary situation that will eventually work itself out, and we're going to be back on track because these companies are coming. They are not canceling at this stage for any reason. They are here, they're coming, and all of their suppliers are coming. And we have about, what I got from that economic message was about 20 Asian companies and another, at least another 8 from the UK, I think another 8 from the European Union. We're working on getting direct flights from these international states to Greater Phoenix, which really helps with the development of these relationships. And so whatever hiccup we're going through right now, if you're a long-term hold, you bought your home, you expect to live in it 3, 5, 10 years or longer, you're fine. You do not need to worry about what your home's going to be worth in the next 2 months or 6 months or a year for that matter, because you are considered a low-risk hold as long as you can afford your mortgage payment.
And I think that needs to be, unfortunately, so like the psychology background of where I came from. Whenever you hear something negative, you have to at least say it, see it, feel it 3 times to knock out that negative message that's being sent. And so for us, what I love about, again, the Cromford and us coming in, it's a constant repeating, being on video, talking about it, getting in front of people where you can make an impact and continuing to put through that message. I don't know if we're kind of disappointed a little bit in some of the industry that we're not coming through with that education piece enough to be able to say Phoenix is different, right? We can't just lump us in the same as the rest of the United States or what's going on across.
That's right.
So I think for us, we just need to be louder and stronger as a community.
Yeah, I think because back before the foreclosure crisis, if you will, they called Phoenix the canary in the coal mine. And that's probably an outdated term now, but basically...
Google it.
Yeah. Because we were the first to go down and the first to come out, that they feel like we're going to be that same situation. They thought that for COVID too, and they were wrong. One of the main things that has changed for Greater Phoenix is, first of all, we have to remember our state is barely 100 years old. Okay, I think we just hit 100, what was it, 2012?
Yeah.
So what are we, 110 years old now as a state? I think there are people who are literally older than our state that live here. And so the thing is that we are like, compared to your New Yorks and Chicagos and LAs and San Franciscos, we are the little sister. Like, we're the scrappy little sister. We're still growing. We're going to make our mistakes, but we're still in the beginning stages of whatever this metropolitan area is going to look like, right? And so I think that's something to keep in mind, that we are continually going to be different. In 2005 through 2008, our job growth, all of our economy was based heavily on real estate, construction, tourism, and low-end call centers. And so, and we had what did they call it when, talent flight or whatever, brain drain, whatever it was. We would educate people through at ASU, but then they would leave us and go to other places. So what's happened in the meantime is GPEC, and I talk about it, I'm a huge fan. Okay. I'm like the Greater Phoenix Economic Council groupie. But what they've done, which is quite brilliant, and by the way, Chris Camacho, who's the CEO of GPEC, has won countless awards, national awards, if not international awards, for the work that he's done in diversifying our base in terms of employment and in terms of talent. We have expanded in healthcare, in high technology, biotechnology, information technology. Semiconductors are becoming a huge portion of the semiconductor industry now. So what that means is that it mitigates the impact on, say, tourism, real estate, ups and downs, where people can move from one industry to another. One industry is going down, but another industry is coming up. So what happened during COVID is they expected Phoenix to, apparently drop into a hole, and we ended up being one of the better surviving cities out of that. Now, thank goodness that was a short term, but that's why the economists in town here believe that the same diversity that helped us during the pandemic is going to help us during this recession, wherever you are. If we think you're in a recession or going
Can
through a
we
recession.
say it? Can we say recession? It sure feels like it.
It feels like a
Oh my
recession,
gosh.
but from what I understand, we don't get to call a recession. We have to wait for some like very smart people with gray hair and glasses at tops of skyscrapers to at some point declare it. So
I want to be that guy, because we all know what happens when we say that word. Things get triggered. You know, it's funny how history plays itself out, and but no, we're just going to wait. We're going to wait until, I don't know, after, we don't want to say it because it might affect the midterm elections, even though people are feeling the pain.
I know that people are waiting to know. We think about midterms before they vote. I'm pretty sure.
Are they? Yeah. Yeah, it's one of those.
Nobody's decided.
I don't know that we can talk about that. So you talked to thousands of agents, maybe it's hundreds, but thousands. Tell me one of your funniest questions or stories someone has asked you.
Oh my.
Because
Well,
we're all not. We sometimes are not the brightest
I
bulbs.
would say my favorite question recently. Now, mind you, we've come out of a period of 2 years now where we have a lot of newer agents who may only have 2 years experience. And
Everyone's shaking their heads. Yes.
just we've gone through this phase where the listing price was the starting price. You only go up from there, right? You put a listing on the market, within literally hours you have multiple offers. That was what we came from. So when we started to shift into what is now a balanced market, which we haven't seen, by the way, since 2014. So you have agents who have 7 years experience
Still haven't seen it.
that have not seen a balanced market. So one of my favorite questions was when I started talking about concessions. You know, we have 3 stages. When a market shifts, there's 3 stages. First is price reductions, then the days on market go up, and then the third is concessions. So we started talking about concessions, blah, 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 blah. I've been talking about it for months. All of a sudden somebody asked me, what is a concession? That literally, so I realized that we have terms in our real estate industry that we think everybody knows, and they don't. Obviously, for those of you who don't know what that is, when sellers pay for some of the buyers' closing costs, some or all of them in many cases, or there's some kind of interest rate buy downs, all of those things. And so that was my favorite question, because it just reminds us that there are people who have, not only have they never seen a market like this, but we've not seen it go down quite as fast like this, and we're all on the same roller coaster.
Yeah. It's funny, I think there were a bunch of us who've been doing this for decades who went, concessions, this first thing that popped in our mind, hey, we can do a buy down, look at that. I went the list to sell price is 97%, that's 3%, we can take that 3%, we can put it in, I mean, you know,
Right.
and others are going, what's concession? This is my favorite slide that you always put in.
Oh, thank you.
It says, so right now it says we're in despair, which I think there's some truth that. When are we going to move to skepticism and hope?
Well, if I were to make this very scientific projection
Yes. Oh, yes.
on emotions,
Yes.
I believe we are going to get into skepticism and hope in the first and second quarter
Okay.
of the year.
Wow, we're going to stay in despair that long.
Yeah, there's just something about the new year that, you know, human beings in general, even though it's just a mark on the calendar,
Yeah.
you have January 1st, 2023, they're going to be like, that year's done. I only see puppy dogs and rainbows
Yeah.
going into 2023.
Well, we are going into the holiday season, so tequila comes out quite
That's
a bit during
right.
that time. So, you know, we just got to get past that.
Are you
party
talking
stage.
about our holiday parties? Is that what you're talking about? Oh, gosh. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, but I think that's, we're going to, now mind you, if you have a buyer in despair, I would probably urge them to try to pull themselves out of it in the fourth quarter, honestly. This is the time to be a buyer. Despair, when your sellers are in despair, that is the time that you get really good deals.
Yeah, we were talking about that.
Yeah.
So we were talking about even just prepping of different ways that you can, besides just buying down the rate, you know, talking to a seller, approach a seller, carrybacks, things like that, right? So
I
Yes.
know the old cellar, blow off the dust off
I
that.
know.
So
I mean,
there's ways of getting them in still.
That's right, and that's why I love this industry, because people who've been around for a long time, and I hate to put myself in there, but the thing is that there are things that they used to do in the 90s, things they used to do in the early 2000s, that we haven't had to use in a long time, and they are literally collecting dust and spider webs on
Yeah.
the shelf, and we're like, well, I guess we're gonna pull this one off. We've heard of the 2-1 buy down.
Yes.
People are now like, what
Yes.
about a 3-2-1 buy down?
Yes.
Which we used to do those. And again, now we're having to define buy downs. We have a whole slew of lenders who have never done buy downs before because they haven't had to.
we've only done refis.
Right, but if you want to look at where the creativity is coming in the marketplace, you can look right at our local investors. And I will tell you that one thing that we have today that we did not have in 2008 are very giddy investors. They are just like, this is amazing. They are like hoarding their cash. They're waiting for the perfect time. I have a feeling they're going to come out in December. But the thing is that they do a lot of creative type things. And so one of the things that people we haven't had to do this for a very long time either, is understanding assumable loans. That FHA is assumable, VA is assumable. To a qualified buyer, there
Right.
are, don't listen to me, go talk to your lender.
Yeah. Asterisk, yes.
Yeah, I know enough to be dangerous. But I know that those are opportunities
That's right.
out there. And I know it's going to put a shiver through every title company probably, but wraps. So that's where the investors are coming in. And that's a word that we have not heard probably since the 90s. But, and lenders don't like those, but those are things that some of the investors are looking at, because you've got a lot of sellers with a 3% loan that an investor's like, well, I'll pay that for you, and then I'll just pay the 7% on what's left. And so I expect to see, if we don't see any real changes in lending practices and new programs and maybe loosening of requirements, then you're going to start seeing some people who have to sell their home getting creative.
Your favorite pastime?
Oh, my favorite pastime? Oh my.
Don't say studying real estate. 'Cause
No, don't worry. I would say that one of my very favorite things to do is ski.
Oh,
And lately, I've been getting into canyoneering.
what is that?
Canyoneering is
Sounds
if
dangerous.
you're hiking down a stream bed. It is you do a lot of rappelling down waterfalls, things like that.
Oh,
So I don't know if you've noticed, you might have noticed, I am a little bit ADD. And for those of us who can't keep our mind from wandering and being active,
yep.
there's something about panic that helps us relax. And so whenever you have to focus all of your mental energy on what you're doing, ironically for me, it is a relaxing thing.
So
Please.
just walk around here in heels, because all of the pebble walkways, you have to be very
Yeah.
concentrated not to
Yeah.
trip.
That's true, yes, that is another, I might do
Just so
that.
you know,
Yeah.
so you don't have
Yeah.
to leave.
So for
That's
the
uphill.
sake of our industry, will you please wear a helmet?
I do wear a
Okay,
helmet.
just checking, because, we can't have any,
But I'll tell you a little secret,
Yeah.
if you can take it.
I can't.
In June, I busted all my teeth.
Oh.
They're all new, aren't they pretty?
Well, you're so Scottsdale.
Yeah, I called up my dentist at Monday morning at 7. I'm like, I need new teeth by 1. I have to be on Zoom. So I had new teeth.
But you could have appealed to the hockey crowd.
Yeah, that was from I
helmet
slipped on
didn't go
polished
that far.
granite. I wasn't even rappelling.
Oh my
I slipped on
gosh.
polished granite just hiking, and bam. So.
Well, we usually wrap up with a short piece of the market. So since you're far more qualified than I am, do you have one kind of tidbit on the market today that, that's been happening that we should be applauding or worried about, or just advice, just from, the stuff you guys put out, or some inside track?
Well, here's a little something, and I don't
I
know
knew it.
if it's
You should
your.
have something. It doesn't have to be short.
Well, typically speaking, we've talked about this a lot. The fourth quarter in any market is the best time to be a buyer,
Yeah.
by far.
Right.
And so that's why even with today's interest rates, I believe it's important for all buyers to be on deck, because the rates could drop down for a day or two, and then they're boinging back up. They're very volatile. So you have to be like in tune and step with your loan officer. Be aware of every single down payment program, every single grant, anything possible that you think might help you if you're a first-time home buyer.
Yeah.
Do not give up on your purchase opportunities. And here's another tidbit, and I don't do predictions on interest rates. I let other people be wrong about that. However, I am into reasonable expectations. I always push reasonable expectations.
Right.
When we've looked at, historically speaking, all the way back to 1975, every single recession, interest rates have come down, and they have come down sharply.
Yeah.
So if you do get in with a 7% or whatever it is, there's a high likelihood that you'll be able to refinance between now and, like, say, for instance, 3 years from now. But the shortest recession we've had is 6 months, the longest is 1.5 years. And I would argue that we've probably been through something resembling a recession for 6 months. So I would say that none of these markets last forever. And if you can get in, the home ownership side of things in the United States, most people at the end of their working life have the majority of their wealth in the home that they live in. So the earlier you can get in, the better.
So you think that, because we were talking about this as well, and I know you just said that you're not you don't like to put the predictions in, but once those interest rates drop, the competition's going to be flooding
That's
back
right.
in, and the demand is going to skyrocket, and then we're
Yes.
kind of going to be similar.
Exactly. So, well, I mean, we can't really say we're going to be exactly similar, but what I can tell you is this. If you are what I call the not-so-perfect buyer, we just came through a market that was great for the not-so-perfect home. We used to call it the dump your junk season.
Yes.
Yes. Anything will sell.
Any dilapidated structure will
Smell
sell.
didn't matter.
Yes.
That has reversed. Now condition, price, and concessions and patience, all of that matter for sellers. Those are the seller words to remember. But for a buyer, if you are that 3% down FHA, you've been kicked to the curb for 2 years, you do not, if you can get in, you do not have the competition, and you will have a seller who will consider your offer with concessions. They'll consider your offer with a contingency. They'll consider your offer, any offer at this stage of the game, especially between now and the end of the year. Also, you have builders and iBuyers that are most likely looking to sell as many homes as they can before the end of the fourth quarter. So you may start to see some good specials come out. So that's what I'm saying.
They need to show revenue.
That's right.
Not
As a buyer, you just need to stay aware of your opportunities, stay engaged, and stay informed.
That's right, and that's why you give us a call here at the Orange
Yeah,
Vortex,
so they
and
need
we
us.
have all these agents who are looking out for your best interest. Thank you.
My pleasure.
I've watched you from afar, and I watched the mobs of people come up to you, so I've never been able to get in to say, Tina, can you give me your autograph? Oh, jeez.
Let me
You sound
tell
like you're
ya,
from Minnesota, don't you know?
If you had told me the very unpopular 14-year-old that I was in high school, that one day I'd be popular, I would have told you were crazy. So, anyhow, but thank you, because if anybody's trained me, this real estate, the professionals in this industry over the last 20 to 30 years, this is what you've produced.
You're kind to call the industry professionals in some ways, but yes, it is a great training ground. It's for everything. So with that, we're going to wrap up. Follow us on your favorite podcast site. We will have this on YouTube someday. You can watch it there. Like, subscribe, comment, share. And we'd like to remind everybody this is sponsored by Lawyers Title. If you want your deed recorded, call Lawyers. With that, we'll wrap up. Thank you, Tina. Have a great day, everybody, and we'll see you next time on The Good, the Bad, and the Orange.